Are you trying hard to disrupt the market with innovative solutions? Do you want to make your business more agile? Which is the right path? Entrepreneurship or corporate venturing? Gain a competitive advantage by recognizing the right strategic partners. Learn the importance of corporate and startup connections, how they differ, how they complement each other, and how the best things happen when they work together. Get ready. We're taking corporate innovation to a new level.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Studio 2. You've just heard it there. So everything to do with corporate innovation, taking the right path, the connections between the startup world and the corporate world, bringing those together, and then hopefully navigating our way forward in the right direction. So if I ask you, how would you set up a corporate startup? Those of you that have done this will know. Maybe you've done it well, maybe not. All right, who am I to judge? But the thing is, those of you that maybe are thinking about this, it's on your mind, you need some advice, you need some, maybe a little bit more navigation to move you in the right path and maybe avoid some of the mistakes that maybe others have made. I think what we're about to hear now, or who we're about to hear right now, will certainly help us on our way. So let me introduce to you now our next speaker now, who'll be sharing all about how to set up as a corporate startup. From Belgium, general partner at 9.5 Ventures, Bart Huben.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Wonderful. I thought we were going to have a speaker video there. We didn't, but that's okay. That's fine. So did you hear how I said it? I was like building up, and then we have a video of you, and then we carry on. Anyway, we're here. Right, Bart, where are you right now?
I'm right now in Antwerp.
Yeah, how's the weather? What's it like there right now on the middle of May?
Right now it's dry, but these days it's quite grey, a bit too grey for the time of the year.
Okay, right here in Maribor, not a bright day. It was a bright day yesterday, a little bit more, quite a cloudy one today. But regardless of the weather and what's happening outside, what's important now is what you share with us to our audience, all about setting up a corporate startup. Right, I'll leave it to you. You've got 20 minutes, all yours.
Okay, thanks.
Right, I think we've just a quick technical difficulty. We'll see if we can get Bart back as soon as we can. We're working on that right now. So while we're trying to do that for you now, remember a little bit later on here, we have a fantastic panel all about the experience in running a corporate startup. So it will be, as I say, intriguing. It will be a healthy discussion that helps us to kind of understand what it takes and really how to run a corporate startup as well. So we've got that coming up also. Just waiting again back to bring Bart back on the screen. We're doing that as I speak. Incidentally, a little bit later on, we move on to a very short block called Getting Funded. Right, Getting Funded, and that we've got a fantastic panel, and the title of that is simply "Why Are Women Founding Teams Outperforming Men's in Terms of Funding?" Now that's an intriguing question. I don't have the answer to that. Maybe you've got some ideas, but the panel, the four people on the panel with our moderator, hopefully by the end of it, will come up with a few answers for you. So I'm looking forward to that, and that's at 2.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, we're still trying to get Bart back. Doing our best there. Maybe what we can do, perhaps, right now is we can just put. Oh, Bart's coming back. Okay, again, remember, a little bit later on as well, we've got the actual final of the Podim Startup Competition as well. Remember, a few days ago, we started off with 160 startups. We brought that down to to just 10 in the semi-final. And during that semi-final, we listened, we discussed, and well, not we, I didn't, but the jury members, they decided exactly who those lucky finalists are. And today, a little bit later on today, Daniel Cronin, moderator here at Podim 2021, my colleague, he's not here in the studio, he's not here in Maribor, he's back where he lives in Vienna. He'll be moderating that intriguing session, and by the end of it, we will know who that well-deserved lucky. I keep saying lucky, but it's actually they're more well-deserved than lucky. But you do need a little bit of luck as well. We'll find out who that well-deserved winner of the Podim 2021 startup competition is. I believe we're back on track now. A few technical difficulties. Bart, are you with me? You're with me. I can see you, but I'm not sure whether we can hear you. We can hear you. Fantastic. A few technical difficulties. Don't know where that happened. All that I know is that we have less time together. We have about 8-9 minutes together. So over to you, Bart.
Okay, thanks. So I will keep it a bit shorter. So indeed, very happy to talk about how we look at corporate venturing. And that is actually as an investor. So we are a venture capitalist, but fully dedicated to corporate venturing. So our basic model is we invest in ventures that also have a corporate partner on their cap table. But the ventures are like any venture of a classic venture capitalist, are fully independent and managed by their founders or managers. And it's the corporate and we that are accelerating them. And we're not managing them, we're accelerating them. We can start it from a venture that started within a corporate, starting from an idea or an actual venture that they are spinning out, or it can start from an external venture that is attracting a corporate. Maybe we're a rather small fund, 35 million under management, 4 partners working out of Belgium and active in all of Europe. But more importantly, why are we doing this? We're doing this because we believe it is a good way, it's not the only, but it's a good way to unlock the corporate innovation goals. And let me go back to how 9.5 was started, because that also gives the reason why we're working this way. It's founded by 2 very different people. One was a venture builder who ran a venture building consulting company for 10 years. And he saw that a lot of great innovative ideas in a corporate didn't get to life, didn't get to flourish for different reasons. But the main reasons always came back to it's not an actual venture. While the other founder is a serial entrepreneur looking to invest in startups, and he found it very difficult to be able to identify which startup has an unfair advantage versus the others. And if you manage it well to get a corporate partner on your cap table, or to externalize a venture from a corporate, and that corporate can really give that unfair advantage to that venture, that's how we can combine the best of both worlds of the corporate acceleration and the VC power. So what did we encounter? We saw a lot of corporate innovation initiatives. They all have different forms. You recognize a lot of them. Some of them work, none of them work all the time, but they all go for the same goals. It's extra revenue, exploring adjacent business models, attracting entrepreneurial talent, innovating products. But all of them have faced some problems. And those problems, you can structure them or categorize them in some main buckets. they all come down to the structure and the governance, which refers to the classic corporate and political swamp that a venture can get into. The knowledge and experience. Many corporates don't have much experience in running a venture. The people and the culture, it's a different breed of people that you need to run an agile venture versus run a multinational corporate. And on the time and capital. And with capital, I don't mean the capital on the balance sheet of the corporate, because that's more often than not plenty. But it's the capital that they are willing to allocate at the time that the venture needs it. A venture should not be receiving capital based on the budgets of the corporate. So that's what I mean with time and capital. It should get its time that it needs, it should get the capital that it needs, and it doesn't have anything to do with the timing or budgeting of the corporate. So that's our solution. It's to focus on a self-governed venture that is accelerated by two very different parties. A VC fund, being 9.5 Ventures, and the corporate who has the market knowledge, the access to clients, access to R&D, whatever the venture needs. We both steer it purely as investors. That means that we're present in the board, but not in the management team. We don't interfere in the daily management. Again, it's a classic self-governed venture. And the venture, they ask for help towards the corporate, for example, as I said, marketing, R&D, things like that. Can be anything. Or, of course, we can help them as well. And that will be more like things like governance. How do you govern a venture? Like on human resources, how do you attract the right people? How do you set up ESOP and warrant plans? Again, something that a classic corporate is not used to. But we, with our investor lens, where of course we only want management and founders that is heavily incentivized by equity. And we do that through a rigorous methodology, which is again a combination of the venture building and a due diligence of a classic VC. So the people who are active in venture building will recognize a lot of these parts. Depending on which stage we start, we start with exploring an idea and a full venture building trajectory, or only doing a due diligence on an existing venture. But of course, our real added value kicks in here when we are building the company, when we're helping accelerate. And in all this building phase, we, of course, focus also on the corporate acceleration. We focus on unlocking that. And in the end, we have an exit strategy like any other VC party would have. So we are also on that matter fully aligned with the founders or the managers. And we know how to go about the corporate position in that aspect. And that can be very different. It can be that the corporate buys it back, can be that we sell it together, can have various options.
Okay, Bart, I'm just going to jump in here just because of time. So if I was to ask you just to kind of wrap up now, last sentence or two, the kind of key messages you'd like to share with our audience right now, what would you say?
I would say that it's very interesting to have the investor lens in a corporate venture, and that's what is often lacking. When a corporate is trying to set up a venture or launching a venture, they often don't look at it as an investor. They look at it as what can this venture do for the corporate. While that's not the right way to have a venture flourishing. You should look at how to bring value to this venture, and that's something we do with the lens of an investor.
Okay, so bringing that value and focusing on that value, always pushing that forward in the first place. Listen, Bart, thank you so much. It's been short for both of us, technical difficulties which stopped us for you sharing even more information and even more value as well. But I'm sure hopefully we'll get a chance to hear from you once again at another stage in another place. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
Okay, you're welcome.
Bye-bye. Right, we carry on. So remember, this is all about corporate innovation. And again, if I ask you your experience in running a corporate startup, if you have, this will be probably kind of not music to your ears, but it will be something that you're quite familiar with. If you haven't, but you'd like to know more and you'd like to get some maybe clear insights to help you move forward and maybe avoid some of the, maybe not so much mistakes, but some of the things or the paths people went down, which maybe in hindsight now, they not regret, but maybe they would have taken another path. What you're about to hear now could be quite insightful indeed. So we're going to jump into a healthy discussion, a panel discussion, all about the experience in running a corporate startup, and the man who is actually going to navigate this discussion in the right way and in a very meaningful way indeed. Please welcome to the floor from Austria, What a Venture, Senior Innovation Manager from What a Venture, Louis Huber. Are you there, Louis?
Yes.
It is time to rethink and to realign, learn and get inspired. Prepare your questions and enjoy this insightful Podim DX panel.
Louis, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for the lovely, dramatic introduction.
You're welcome. As dramatic as can be for a dramatic man just like you. I look at you now, and I just think drama. Okay, listen. I'll hand it over to you now, and look forward to this healthy, productive discussion.
Thank you. So first, I would like to have our panelists introduce themselves. I think first off, you already loved and heard about Bart Huben, partner of 9.5 Ventures. Then we have in our panel Nicolas Büsse, founder and CEO of Mobico, a corporate spin-off of Audi. We have Thomas Rudolph from The Heart, founder and CEO now in the supervisory board. And then we have Stefan Peintner, founder and lovely partner of What a Venture. Founder, partner of What a Venture for Italy, our office there. So first off, Bart, thanks for your presentation. This is where we're going to start with. I think interesting again for us and for everyone who's watching, the focus you actually have as 9.5 Ventures on corporate startups, which is something very rare in the venture capital focus area and industry. So therefore, also Nicolas Büsse, as founder of a corporate startup, how does funding and then going through your journey a little bit from the ideation to then actually a spin-off, how did this go and how was it for Mobico for you?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for the participation or for inviting me to the panel. I'm super excited to talk here. It's quite fancy, the digital setup. I'm Nicola, co-founder of Mobico. We are a spin-off of Audi Business Innovation together with the company Builder Mantro, also located in Munich. And we're a software company and we provide mobility budgets to employees so they can freely choose how to travel from A to B. And then we manage all the budgets in the background and the administration and incentivization for sustainable mobility. So the whole journey, I mean, there is a lot to talk about. So I'm trying to keep this journey short. So I used to work at Audi Business Innovation, and Audi Business Innovation is a 100% subsidiary of Audi. And they were set up to innovate and to develop digital business models for Audi. So Mobico, the idea of Mobico was kind of random and rather a side product than being developed in a specific process. So we quickly picked up that idea. We challenged it with some of the companies out there, and then we thought, okay, hey, there is a market and there is a need for that idea, and we would like to pursue that. And we quickly learned also that Audi would probably not be the best hub to actually grow that idea. So we were thinking about externalizing it and do a spin out or a spin off. And so as we never did that before at Audi Business Innovation, we were seeking for a partner that were actually like in that field and knew what to do and how to set up a digital company. So we partnered together with a company builder called Mantro, also based in Munich. And I think they made all the difference because they were helping us from the beginning, setting up the company, actually setting up also a team, finding the right people to actually do that corporate startup. And it kind of balanced out both parties, like the corporate, being a corporate, being, having somehow an idea how this venture should go. But also on the other side, Mantro, who is clearly just looking at the market and how to make the startup successful. Great. So yeah, funding wise, because you asked, funding wise, I think I really like the terms that Bart just said in his little presentation. It's really about timing of capital. So we really need to think at a corporate startup to not just throw money at the startup at the beginning, but to think of the startup as a long-term investment and long-term journey. And then according to the startup needs, there needs to be an investment.
Maybe one step back there and going to Thomas, why an external investor anyway? Why do you need a company built outside? Also, Nicola, you mentioned it already for the knowledge and the perspective on the market. Also, just spoilering a little bit, you're actually writing a book. So therefore, also, what was the outcome of the interviews?
Well, I think the main message of my interview partners and also the experience of the Heart, which is a corporate venture builder, building a portfolio of ventures with MasterCard, but also other corporates across industries. I think the main finding I've had so far is as a corporate, Bart mentioned that we don't have the capability in corporates. I think we do have those muscles, but they are hidden in the corporate fat and bureaucracy and structures, because any corporate was once a venture when it started. But if we don't use the venture building muscles, just as startup studios do, which set up new companies every month or every quarter or sometimes even faster, we just don't have the structures and the know-how how to do it well. And obviously that results in many mistakes that you might make, in bad incentive structures. So an external partner, be it a company builder or an investor or both, are actually potentially great partners for corporates to make sure this is the right decision to spin it off, that this additional validation is actually helpful also for executives, that it's not just us that believe this makes sense, but then also an accelerated incubation phase, because you in corporates to hire staff sometimes for specific new areas where you don't have capabilities. If you go through typical corporate structures, HR and whatever, it might take a lot of time. Most of company builders have shared services of people that are that's what they do. They validate new concepts all the time. That's what they do for a living. So they do have those interim teams that might help you in the initial phase in building a story, validating it with consumers, creating an MVP. And then once you know that it's really what you want to do, they'll help you spin it off and grow the venture. And obviously an investor like 9.5 also, or in many cases, just bringing in external investors in general, helps you give the venture independence and access to capital that it needs, not dependent on your internal corporate politics.
And then why is this independency important? Why should a startup be independent in that phase and even afterwards from the corporate?
Well, I guess you don't have to build independent ventures, then they'll call it just products or line extensions or whatever. But if it's really something independent as a new company, as a new business, then obviously that proximity from to the corporate cannot be too far, because corporates have huge gravity. I mean, you have political power of existing business lines that bring all the revenue, and they take all the attention and resources. And obviously, a tiny idea doesn't have the political power to defend itself. So you need to just move the venture a little bit outside and protect it. And I think in most cases, corporates are bad parents to those ventures. I mean, they ask, what's in it for me as a mother or as a father company? And they ask myself, how will that venture help me? Rather than, is it a sister business? And can I have some synergy? Maybe I can help it grow as an investor, or it might help me solve value chain problems, be a great supplier or distributor or value-added service to my business, or a distributor, and then obviously it adds value to the corporate in the long term strategically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Stefan, for you, for example, you spoke to a lot of those bad parents, let's say. What is in the setup important to talk with them about, to focus on the incentives, the structure? What are those conversations like?
Yeah, so definitely the parents, then so the mother company looks at the corporate startup. I think here typically there are typically two archetypes. So on the one side, it's either the parents that look at what are the synergies, what can I get out of it, and how can I profit myself by using the corporate startup as a vehicle. And on the other side, there are the corporates which have the feeling, okay, this is a nice idea. This came out of an entrepreneurship program or some kind of accelerator. How can I keep this far? How can I maybe keep this small and not invest too much? And on both sides, we looked at 5 key items that are important to look at. And that's first of all, the stakeholder management. So ensuring that you have what we then define this contextuality, knowing why this corporate startup should exist, where does it fit in our vision, where does it fit strategically, and who is the owner of it, who's the sponsor, where's this natural home, who can nurture this baby going forward. The key discussions then are a lot about autonomy, secondly. So how can we as a corporate give or empower the corporate startup to work autonomously? So not being drawn too much into corporate politics. How can I enable them to pivot without boardroom discussions of the large corporate? And I think the other 3 things, not to make it too long, is then about ensuring the strategic fit, about getting the culture right, and getting the right people on board. What I think is really interesting also about the concept that Bart presented with 9.5 Ventures and getting also in external company builder is that it challenges the corporate or the innovation board and the internal stakeholders to look at the corporate startup from a different perspective and really define also the boundaries. So what is going to be the reporting structure? What is the governance going to look like? But maybe most of all, also, what are the assets that the corporate startup can use, and how can we use it? I think this is often something that starts off in the corporate startup world, like, oh, we have this USP because we can use the brand power of the corporate. And then as soon as they actually try to use it, there's a big no from the marketing team that says, oh, wait, this is brand reputation. You cannot use this brand. So I think putting this black and white part is something of the discussions that you have, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think, Bart, we said on another day, another time, we will hear more about you. I think this day is now. So therefore, when it comes to setting up the leverage and how to leverage the power of the corporate, what is the difference of how does it work in theory and then how does it work in practice according to the experience?
Well, in theory, we start discussing and dialoguing on what the corporate can do for the venture as of day one. Sometimes even before the venture is defined, and that goes into the shareholders' agreement, and it's all agreed upon. In practice, we have indeed a very important role of reminding the corporate of those agreements. And corporate, of course, it's always about people, and in a corporate, they tend to switch quite a lot. So indeed, you have to remind the successor of the previous executive that that this was the agreement to help the venture and not demand anything of the venture. And it's not only repeating that, it's also indeed keep on emphasizing why they're doing that. And that is indeed, I really like, Thomas, your analog with raising a child. I mean, just give them whatever they need, let them flourish, let them grow. And that's the best way to build a valuable venture or to have an independent, strong child.
So looking at the child, who drives then the startup? And in that sense, since we have here two venture builders and the investor and the founder of a corporate startup, looking to you, Nicola, who drives the startup also in what phase, if that switches over time?
Yeah, so I mean, I can speak in our case, it was always the team. So you need to have a very motivated and passionate team that is actually driving the startup. So our investors or the stakeholders were always in the background supporting us and allowing us to be very selective with them. So like selecting synergies where we think they could help us. But we were always in the driver's seat. And I think that's the way it has to be, because you know your company the best, you know the market the best, you know the customer the best. And so you just need to let to know your stakeholders anyways, but the company is always driven by the team.
Letting know the stakeholders, is the reporting different for a corporate startup than it is to a classic startup in a VC case?
I mean, again, speaking from my perspective, so what we did a monthly reporting just to let them know what's happening, so the ups and downs, and so that they can possibly also help us when we were struggling somewhere and they could jump in. So that worked pretty well for us, just letting them know on a monthly basis how things are looking. So I don't think that it's really different to a classic VC, but maybe Bart, Thomas, you have other perspective on that.
Yeah, I believe many ventures in a classic VC setting do not report on a monthly basis. They may on a weekly basis inform on WhatsApp on the revenue, but the reporting on a monthly basis, most of them do not. And indeed, some corporates expect that. And if possible, okay, it's fine to do that, but it should not. It should not be an obligation which is harsh to read for the venture, and it's also a reason why often it is good, even a corporate spin-out, for the corporate to have a smaller percentage so that they don't need that reporting every time. If they're still in a majority share and it's a publicly quoted corporate, yeah, they indeed need figures because they have to consolidate. We've indeed encountered situations in which the corporate wanted to go below 50% to not longer be obligated to demand the monthly reporting, and that's a good thing if they can let go that obligation.
Yeah, fair enough. That sounds very reasonable. Stefan, to your side, what is then in the beginning, the team drives and the team is the most important part. What is then the role of the venture builder in the beginning when it comes to validating the idea and also maybe finding HR, finding the team, finding the right persons, etc.?
Yeah, especially when we talk about early stage corporate startups. And Bart also showed how they often just start investing in an early idea in this validation phase. I think the key aspect to it is that in this early stage, the corporate startups need a lot of different skills, and they need all of those different skills a little. You need a little bit of marketing, you need a little bit of operations productions, you need a little bit of legal support, a little bit of HR, and so on. And then you are in this corporate environment where, yes, you would actually have all the access to HR, to legal, and so on. But this is often hard to access, and it is then quite slow. And the company builder can really help you in this phase to bring in those bits and pieces that you need at the right time, at the right moment. So bringing in this flexibility and bringing in the speed, and most of all, having always this startup mindset to it. So differentiating how legal the support from corporate would be versus quick legal support that you need for a startup or even HR. This is something what we very often see, that sometimes you just need to get this right person very soon and not having a 3 months or 5 months recruiting process in front of it.
Yeah, I see a lot of nodding heads, especially I guess this fits well, Thomas, with what you said before also, the kind of balance and also the speed you need, and what kind of came out of your interviews, that this speed is especially important in the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. I think in general, the venture building process is quite different in many cases, and if done within the corporate, and also company builders differ in their models and the role they have. Initially, when we started thinking of company building, I guess we are thinking of a startup as a service model, which often company builders offer to corporates, give us the idea, we'll refine it, we'll validate it, we'll build it for you. And our role actually, initially we've done that, but our role has changed to actually the one that actually starts the idea and brings to the investment committee regularly some validate concepts. Some concepts start with a trigger from the corporate, the need, the opportunity space. Some just result from us knowing, in the MasterCard case, for example, we work very closely with banks or retailers, and we know their problems. We are spending time venture building for them. So coming back to MasterCard, we can name the opportunity spaces that we're seeing, and then regularly, obviously, decide together, okay, this comes as a concept to be developed into a venture potentially, and then if it goes through some gates, it gets funding for the next phase. So I guess obviously the role that you've mentioned of a venture builder as a group of shared services that can support the idea from flourishing is extremely important at the phase of validation and building. The inception of ventures obviously might start with an entrepreneurial team or a board idea that is then validated. But increasingly, I'm saying that it just starts with the entrepreneurs in the venture builder, because if you look at Rocket or Flagship and other venture builders, a lot of them are actually very strong and also equity-wise. They are the entrepreneurs actually running the venture, at least initially, and then they cast CEO. They are casting for, just like for a movie, they're casting for the best person to lead this. Once the idea has been validated and maybe sometimes even turned into MVP, even Moderna that we are getting vaccinated with is a great example. The CEO there wasn't a typical founder as we think of. He was just hired as the best person by a parallel entrepreneur running a Flagship Pioneering to, okay, you take this, adopt this baby, and then bring us to market. So I think the role is different in different models, and obviously corporate, depending on their goal, can just ask for help to babysit your idea and grow it and teach it how to grow, more or less, support it and outsource this process. But increasingly, I think corporates that have a synergistic relationship with a venture builder will benefit from just co-creation of those ventures and not just giving ideas to be built to venture builders.
Maybe if I can jump in there, I think that's a very important topic that you just mentioned. Is the idea giver also going to be the founder and CEO? And we see this as a common pitfall, that you kind of think as an innovation management in a corporate, okay, I need now to keep this person in the team or as leading the team. And often the idea giver does not actually want this role, and once you offer him, hey, you can be the chief visionary officer, or you can just be the grandfather of this project, but we will find the right person to run it. That's often really a relief for everyone.
A lot of family analogies we have now. Parents, babies, grandfathers, we're getting through the whole cycle. To me, interesting now, talking about the grandfather, the visionary, the founder, what is the incentive structure? And this is then looking at who is motivated to actually push this forward. It is the team, it is the founders to a certain extent, or the CEO. How do you incentivize them? And what is this discussion again like with the bad parents? So Nicola, maybe from your side, and then Bart, would be interesting how you handle this as well.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting topic within corporate startups, because we're not a classical startup where founders start their business and then maybe find friends and families to invest money. So they typically, classic startups, they own a lot of shares right from the beginning. But with a corporate startup, you have a different discussion because corporates are not used to giving stakes to employees. I mean, typically you get a salary and then that's fine enough. And even, working for a corporate startup, some might think that it's an honor enough to work for that corporate startup anyway. So that's a very tough decision or tough discussion. And again, that's where 9.5 Ventures or company builders like Mantru or What a Venture come in handy, because they put a lot of emphasis on exactly that structure. So to give more than just a salary, to give like somehow shares to the founding team or to the key hires. So I think that's very important. We still have a lot of discussions about that. We're no exemption from this because it's just not a typical behavior for Audi or for a big corporate. So I think we wouldn't have any chance probably discussing that if it wouldn't be for another partner that just jumps in there and is just putting a lot of emphasis why this is so important to just give skin in the game, or that you have skin in the game. Other than that, I think what Stefan also just said, I think it doesn't necessarily have to be the idea or founder or the founder of the idea, but it has to be a passionate team, and that can come along the way. Like also at Mobico, we kind of found each other. So I wasn't even there when the idea got founded at Audi. So I just came in there just a couple of months later. So I think, when you found a team that's super passionate about it and it has the startup mindset, then from there you can have very good discussions about the whole incentivizing of the team.
So how are these very good discussions, Bart?
Yeah, indeed, fully agree on the fact that the people who came up with the idea or who started it do not have to be the actual team running the venture. It can be, but that's more a coincidence than a must be. And indeed, when we step in, and I personally, I believe it's even if we don't step in, it's best for all corporate ventures that indeed the people who are running it have a significant equity stake. And we see a lot of different situations. We see situations on the one hand, on the very positive side, where people from the corporate are at the moment of spinning out, putting their own private cash on the table to acquire shares and to lift them up to actual founder status. And on the other side of the spectrum, we also see people, I want to do this, but what about my pension fund at the corporate, and that will keep on going? Can I still drive my company car and things like that? And to be clear, that are red flags for us, obviously. You have to have the entrepreneurial mindset. It is indeed not the exact same as an entrepreneur working 2 years in its own garage, not knowing whether they will be able to get some money out of it. So it's normal that they get a salary, but a very modest one, much smaller than in the corporate. And indeed, their equity incentives should be so sizable that if this venture is somehow is a success, and not even a major success, but it's going good, then those entrepreneurs, they actually walk home with a larger figure than the executives of the corporate. That's the way it is. They take the risk, they build a venture, they run it, they should be incentivized well. And it's actually more or less the same when a corporate venture is seeking people to run the ventures. There we attract people from high growth companies like Uber, like Deliveroo, like Zalando. So they're used to work in high growth scale-ups, and they already have an entrepreneurial attitude, and and know how to execute on a plan. That's a bit the difference of a classic founder. A classic founder is every day reinventing its plan. In a corporate startup, there is more or less a plan. It's never carved in stone, of course, but it needs very good execution, entrepreneurial execution.
We heard now a lot about the mindset, the entrepreneurial spirit in the corporate startup and so on. Thomas, what for you is the biggest difference than, let's say, working in a corporate and then making the journey into a corporate startup? What changes culture-wise, really, on your daily basis, on your mindset, on your task level also?
Well, I guess this is different if the corporate executive moves to an independent startup and then if they move to a venture builder supported startup. Because in startup studios and venture builders in general, you have resources, you have experts in HR, marketing, legal, whatever. You don't need to learn everything yourself. When I had a startup in US, I had made all the stupid mistakes in the one that failed because I had no clue. Even I had no clue how to hire a good person because I was not an expert in that space. In venture builders, in most cases, you have experts around the core capability areas, which makes it actually easier for corporate executives to move and build startups with venture builders together because they bring industry expertise and know-how, and the venture builder brings the assets and the capabilities and the shared services. Then it is actually to build an independent startup where you need to start from scratch, being the only person. Most of corporate executives, if they are not just starting, they're already used to managing people, having complementary skills in the company and whatever. So they don't need to know everything. Yeah, and I guess the paradox of being a founder is that you need to be an expert in 100 things, and even if you are usually an expert in 2 or 5 or 10% of that, be it product or technology or business or sales, everything else is where your startup might fail. So you need to build a great team with complementary skills. And venture builders actually help you do that because they have experts in marketing, finance, legal, investment, relations, whatever. And they can help you, just like great operational VCs, hire the right people for your team. And until you do, they give you access to those assets on per hour basis.
So also, Nicola, does this match with your experience? Because you said Mantra as a venture builder was helpful in the beginning. Can you support this, that venture builder are really an asset, or is it more of a, let's say, sales pitch a little bit from the venture building side also at that point?
No, I can totally agree on that. I mean, it was massively helpful at the beginning, but it still doesn't prevent you from making stupid mistakes. That's for sure. And that's good because, I mean, you learn by making those mistakes. But I think that, so at the beginning, it was very helpful, but I think that you come to a point where you need to be independent and you kind of swim free. So you need to learn how to hire your own people because you will not have the company builder your lifelong, because it's still, I mean, they're giving you values or you need to pay for that. So you need to kind of learn stuff then internally and become more independent. So, but at the beginning, it's really helpful. And I mean, especially, for example, payroll, we didn't need to think about that because we just used the payroll services of the company builder. HR wise, it's super difficult for us to get to good developers. So we could just kind of lend developers from the company builder. So that's super helpful, but then you need to have your own team, obviously, in the end. Yeah.
So now also looking at the time, and if you mention mistakes, let's mention some mistakes that maybe all of us made during the first phases, or that corporate startups make on both sides. I mean, Bart, if you would like to start, what are the typical pitfalls or mistakes that maybe are to avoid in the setup, the early phases, or even later?
One of the mistakes we see a lot is not attracting the right people. They're thinking, we don't need strong entrepreneurs. We can help them with everything. It doesn't have to be that strong of a profile to run this, because we have thought it through. We can help them on all aspects. But that's not true. As Nicola said, they have to learn to do it themselves, and you need really good people to run it. So it's not because there is all possible support around it that it's an easy job. It's still a very hard job, and you need top people.
Thomas, on your side, also hearing from the interviews for your book, what were the pitfalls that you saw mentioned and heard in the interviews?
Well, even from our experience at the Heart, building multiple ventures right now, we're seeing that one common mistakes on the corporate side is the thinking if you build one, you should wait till it's successful before you do a second one. Just like a VC would invest in one, hoping for a payback and then reinvest the capital when you're successful. And I've seen a lot of that. And I'm not just mentioning launching one, but even just working on one, validating one idea. And obviously that might backfire really quickly because you might just pick the bad idea or bad timing or bad people, whatever, many things might go wrong. So I think having a VC or portfolio mentality is really key. Second, I guess, is just being in an investor seat with a minority stake initially, rather than driving this with a majority or 100% shares. Because if you're really having 100%, it's not an independent company; it's more of a department or product line. And then you're to blame if it doesn't work, not the founder or whatever, because in most cases you're suffocating with the venture with lack of speed or decisions or assets or whatever. And I think it's way healthier for the ventures to if they are independent companies, and that's what we were speaking of in company building. If the corporate takes a minority stake, I don't know, 15% or something like that, obviously it might be a right of first refusal of some kind, or some agreements that give the corporate special rights. But I think it's way healthier and faster for the venture to grow. We've had ventures where we were briefed, we built a venture in 6 months, we were ready to launch it, and the corporate was still processing with global structures whether they're actually allowed to launch it. And then after 6 months, they told us no. But because we were building it independently, we could together sell the venture to the competitor, and we were continuing. I mean, we had like 3 days break in the team, waiting for decision, and then we were continuing working on the venture as an independent body. And the corporate that invested some money got all their money back. so normally that money would be wasted, our energy would be wasted. But if it's an independent body, actually, it can grow as an independent company, no matter who is the investor.
Yeah, totally agree. A very nice story also. Stefan, looking to you, and then finishing off with Nicola to actually validate those experiences. What is the mistakes, the pitfalls you saw?
From my side, a typical mistake that we see is corporates forgetting about the need of follow-up investments. So financing the first validation phase or the first MVP, and then suddenly getting a request for a 7-digit investment because it's needed, getting the Series A funding in. So that's something that we see quite often. So we encourage corporates to really think it through since from the beginning, having the right structures to being able to give the investment then once it is needed.
Then I think that this is a perfect bridge to Nicola. I think let's encourage Audi to think about the follow-up investment for Mobico. Does this fit the experience and what was just shared on the investor and venture building side with your experiences?
Totally, and I totally agree with all the others on the panel, and especially with Stefan. I just wanted to say that it's really, I would have stressed out the fact probably more that it's rather a long-term journey and not just setting up some kind of project that we dismiss after 6 months. And so I think as a corporate, trying to build a corporate startup, it's not something that after a year you can successfully report to the board that this worked or didn't work. Rather, it's a long-term journey, and there will be follow-up investments, and that shouldn't surprise anyone. And I think that it's something like this super important thing to think through and to have the structures for that.
I will say again, like having a baby, the
Yes.
commitments keep coming and growing.
True.
Absolutely.
Yes, it is. I mean, I'm looking forward to it, to have a baby and then keep investing more and more and more until I get a payback, maybe 20, 30 years later. But let's see. So to me, interesting would be also how actually to get to those startups. Thomas, you mentioned a very cool kind of perspective to actually have those ideas and trends to be brought in by external parties. Of course, there's then looking at trends internally. There's the kind of phase of what kind of problems do I actually have within my company, within my processes, etc. What kind of ways do corporates and what ways do corporates could use effectively to identify trends, to identify ideas, and then go into the direction of corporate startup building?
I think there are many ways to do it. One is to do scouting, and that's how we started. We initially, when we were starting the Heart, we were more matchmaker with existing startups. But then we saw the gaps. We saw opportunity spaces or needs where the corporate had a problem but couldn't find a right fit with existing players. So that's one thing. And if you take Rocket Internet as a great execution machine for company building, it shows you even that if a great concept exists on another continent, a corporate might maybe just build something inspired with an existing concept. Second might be just responding to a value chain problem, which is what Coca-Cola, for example, did in their founders platform, when they were looking at their whole value chain and trying to build companies that solve billion-dollar problems in their value chain as suppliers for Coca-Cola or suppliers for their retailers or merchants or whoever. So those are obviously other ideas. If you take Swisscom as an example, you might just have a great entrepreneurship program with spin-offs as one of the paths. Some might go and develop into products, but some ideas might develop into ventures, and then you might have an interesting, in case of Swisscom, quite successful spin-off program. And obviously a venture builder is a nice fourth example of how it might work out, where you do have a synergistic relationship. In case of MasterCard, we have an annual framework contract. We have a budget for a certain number of concepts to be developed every quarter, and then a certain number of ventures to be developed into MVPs every year. And then you have a mentality that actually fills the pipeline with the right concepts, and you just need to make sure and decide how many. But you have this portfolio thinking from the beginning, for the corporate that likes budgeting, that likes predicting stuff, having a budget is actually creating a nice rhythm for this innovation.
Yeah, totally correct. To me, interesting. How long did it take MasterCard from going to have this one-timer, let's say, and try it out, to actually have this portfolio logic and have this full-on funnel? Because this is a very already competitive and let's say future thinking process. Let's say, I mean, a lot of corporates are not there yet.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I haven't seen a lot of corporates that would have a studio mentality from their first experience with venture building. So we were lucky, probably because the Heart itself was set up with a global CEO of MasterCard coming to us and opening our hub. So we had visibility in the corporate and strong relations and knowledge of what are actually the problems and products and strategies of MasterCard for a long time. And we've started with scouting and then events and hubs and a space. So we had a relationship. So when we were launching the Heart Ventures and the studio with MasterCard from scratch, our first venture was already part of a portfolio with already an annual budget. So we weren't starting with one. I don't think if we would be successful if we were just working on our first one still, even though our first one is really successful and became $1 million business quite within a year. So, but obviously, initially, even in our first investment committee, we had multiple topics already. So, and that is helping a lot. I've been doing a lot of interviews, as I said, and some of those great founders have really struggled because there were no muscles in the corporate, and there was so much pressure on them to fulfill all the dreams of the parents, and sometimes the venture doesn't work, or it's a bad time, and you should work on another concept, and then you're losing really the objective view on the venture, trying to make it work somehow, but it's not. So.
The last point, or also the point you said with building then the $1 million business, and looking at the time, Stefan, would love to hand this to you. When we started and talked a lot about the validation, the early parts of the business, and then setting up the team and the structures, what is actually the importance of scaling, and how do you scale this to come it from a functioning idea and a validated business and MVP to actually then go into scaling and build this multi-million business?
Yeah, I think making this step is one side, then getting on this journey from having the validated idea, having the minimum viable product, having then what we call the minimum viable company, so that you have the structures and processes in place that you can actually scale, so that things and operations work smoothly. Then scaling is indeed an investment. It's an investment in getting the team set up to do the sales, to get more customers on board, and last but not least, to also penetrate the market with additional marketing activities. So scaling comes at a cost that we shouldn't forget, and I think this links back to the follow-up investment needs as well. So once you have the concept that works, don't forget that there is another investment round to actually grow the company. And having the structure set up with the minimum viable company is the basics for that, and then the journey is ahead.
Perfect. I would take this as closing words. Bart, don't forget that Nicola is in a funding round currently and is looking to scale enormously within the coming years. So please stay connected. And therefore, I would love to thank you all for this panel. Would thank you all for your time, for your knowledge and your experiences. And it was lovely to have this conversation with you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks all of you.
Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you so much, panel, our panel members, and naturally Lewis as well, our moderator, keeping everything moving and navigating the ideas together and making sense of everything that's happened on the panel.